Okay, this is the one I'm actually going to be reacting to. Let's see.
Hello, everyone.
I can't do it. Hello, everyone. Oh, man.
Because people are
I'm wearing
dying.
a tank top underneath, I think so. Well, you could take this critique. Yeah, probably, most likely. Hey, Rose, 1 year from now, fuck you. I think this is the first time I do something like this. I'm going to be reviewing an old video of mine. My political positions, summer 2020. And I see that I like my own video. Which I don't do now, by the way. No likes. Got him. Anyway, purpose of this was that I would, every season, I would do like a update on my political positions. This is where I'm at. If you want to have an argument with me, this is how you know where I'm at with all these different things, yada, 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 yada. And then it's been almost 2 years. It's been like a year and 3/4 of another year since I uploaded this one. So we'll see if anything has changed. And I'm also going to be reacting to it, you know, reviewing and debunking potentially my own old video. So we'll see how this goes. All right, take it away, young Rose.
If I had to label myself, I would label myself as a progressive. I feel like this is the best possible label to describe me.
Okay, so I still relinquished the market socialism label back then. Maybe I might say that later, but yeah. I remember that being a thing when I was kind of like a bit more iffy on the market socialism thing. I would just call myself a progressive. No, I think initially I called myself a progressive because I was like, oh, market socialism is a scary word. I don't want to turn any people off of what I'm saying because I call myself a market socialist. So that's when I had progressive. So it's kind of like a hiding my power level thing. But then after I did my research, I realized I'm no longer like a market socialist in the way that people call themselves market socialists are. So this was in that period where I think I was like hiding my power level, and I was just like, damn, you know, I'm just a progressive, guys. I'm not a market socialist or anything. Let's keep watching.
Me, my general ideological predilections. And leanings. When it comes to my axiomatic values.
Oh, we're about to hear some real bad philosophy. Oh, we're 1 minute into my political positions and we're already talking about axiomatic values. Oh, fuck. Okay. Oh, strap in.
I believe in maximizing utility. I'm a utilitarian.
Is that an axiomatic value? Yeah, I think better would be like, what do you define as utility? I think that's probably the better place to take it than just saying you like utility. This is not axiomatic. This is just being a utilitarian.
I care a lot about social and class mobility and the concept of meritocracy.
What is that axiomatic value? Oh, liking social and class mobility and meritocracy. That's an axiomatic value. Oh, fuck.
So what I mean by this is that I want everybody, regardless of who they are, where they come from, to have the opportunity to live happy, fulfilling, and successful lives. That's something that kind of guides the rest of my ideas and the rest of my policy prescriptions. That's super important to me.
Okay, we still agree there. Good job, young Rose. Ignoring the awful philosophy, we're doing good now.
When it comes to economics, the kind of goal I have in mind for an economic model...
He's gonna say it.
Is market socialism.
He fucking said it.
Which, briefly going over what I mean by this, a system in which essential goods and services are publicly owned and operated. So things like education, for example, and non-essential businesses are cooperatives, or if that's not possible, heavily democratized. That's the kind of end goal, I guess, for my economic model.
What does that mean? Heavily democratized firms, but not a co-op. I'm not quite sure what I mean by that. I guess more worker shares and stuff like that. So I guess it's kind of more based than I thought, actually. Hold on, what did he say here?
Are cooperatives, or if that's not possible, heavily democratized. That's the kind of...
Okay, so it ends up that right now I'm at the position where I don't think we have enough research to say, hey, we should have worker co-op mandates. The point about the you know, nationalization of certain vital industries, I still agree with that. I mean, that's part of any, you know, meat and potatoes social democratic platform. So we're still on board with that. now I don't believe in a market socialist mandate or a co-op mandate, because I don't think we have the research in order, like, in place to be able to responsibly advocate for such a thing. That's the main thing I talked about in my debate with Vosh, which you can check out if you haven't already. But yeah, even mentioning, if that's not possible, heavy democratization. Heavy democratization is obviously like a very loose term, but I am currently in favor of more things like employee stock ownership programs, worker representations on boards, increased unionization, which all do increase the bargaining power and, I suppose, the democratic influence over the workplace by the workers. So, you know, this is all right. This is all right, Rose. We're working with it. Look at it. Look, I'm gonna give you a high five. There you go, Rose. You're holding your hand out like you want a high five. You got one. Okay, let's keep going.
End goal, I guess, for my economic model. When it comes to how we get there and the current prescriptions I have for our economy today, I want to expand unions and workers' rights, work towards nationalizing and making public the important industries, move towards more democratic workplace structures in general, research and experiment into the expansion of the co-op sector, as well as just, you know, elaborate on a lot of the important and successful social and public programs that we have right now.
Let's go, Rose. Wow. I thought it was going to be way more LARPy. I seemed like I was in the last one, where I was like, market socialism will solve for the Iraq war. But wow, this is way better. Look at you go, Rose. Look at you go.
When it comes to my social beliefs, as far as LGBT rights goes, I'm all in favor of that. I'm all for that. Gender is a social construct. You know, gender and sexual minorities need to have their legal rights ensured. And I also want to work towards a society where we place less emphasis on gender and gender roles as a whole. So things like raise all children the same, for example, is something that I strongly believe in.
That's pretty good. We're in a good direction, I think, with everything so far. I haven't thought about the raise all children the same in a long time. Yeah, I suppose so. I still agree with that. I don't think you should raise children in heavily gendered ways whatsoever. Yeah, it kind of goes in line with a society with less emphasis on gender and gender roles and stuff like that. So yeah, sounds good. Good job, young Rose. We're 3 minutes in and we're going strong. It was a bit, we're off to a bit of a rocky start with those axiomatic values, but now we're going.
When it comes to BLM and race issues in general, I am in favor of BLM and the changes and the movement that they have provided and the changes they're pushing for. The discrepancies that we see between races, especially in the United States, is due to socioeconomic factors and history. There is no biological basis to race. There is no, you know, credible research that suggests that this is the case. Race really is just skin deep.
Okay, so far really good. Saying just socioeconomics, I think, is a bit simplistic. There are more things that definitely go into it, some more social cultural and social political factors as well that are really important that I would add there. But back then I had an overly broad definition of socioeconomics that kind of like enveloped a lot of those things. So maybe things like, for instance, the war on drugs, I would call that like a socioeconomic issue, whereas it's more of a social political issue, really. So yeah, I think overly simplistic before when I said socioeconomic, because once again, my definition of socioeconomic was way too broad back then, but it's a combination of a bunch of other stuff as well now that have their, you know, according labels, as I just said. So on the right track, definitions of words, a bit like simplistic when it comes to the way it's being delivered, but it's all right. Let's keep moving.
When it comes to immigration, I am pro-immigration for three main reasons. I believe it's principally just to have a society in which people can live and live their lives however and wherever they like. When it comes to the morality of taking in people who are fleeing from, you know, really bad conditions, I believe that it's a massive moral necessity and a positive thing to do to take in.
When I say moral necessity, I guess I mean obligation, I would assume.
These people and provide them with, you know, well-being.
Provide them with well-being. Here's a plate of well-being for the newly arrived migrants. It's just making fun of the way I said a few things.
Also, there are significant material benefits to the receiving nation of having immigration in general. There's a lot of, especially economic benefits that come with this, but also some social ones. When it comes to religion.
Okay, I think I was overly simplistic here. So I still like immigration. I still think it's important to take in refugees. I still believe in all of those things. But I think I was a bit very simplistic, where I was talking a bit about blanket. This is all immigration. This is what it always does. Obviously, there are important things that need to be set in place in order for migration to function in in an optimal way. So things like, for example, infrastructure, things like social plannings, things like integration programs, things like segregation and stuff like that all need to be in order. Obviously no segregation, then, just to be clear, all of those things need to be in order to have like a successful immigration process as you could potentially have. So I probably should have been a bit more nuanced here with how I phrase the effects and the kind of like conditions and prerequisites for those different positive outcomes that I named here. I also have a more dynamic and broad analysis of migration right now, where it's not only about the receiving nation, but it's also about circular migration and the way that can build up developing nations through things like remittances, and then hopefully if you have a more liberal migration system where people can go back and forth, building up and the development and the stabilization of developing nations who currently have a lot of migrants that are moving around and stuff like that. That's also really important. That's another element that I would accentuate here, because to me that's one of the most important elements of migration now, having a good circular migration process that kind of raises all boats, so to say, instead of just migrants coming over and just perpetually staying here. When if you make it more fluid and they can travel back and forth, it also brings a lot of benefits for their home country and the people residing there, which I think is really important. And more stuff on this, I made a video specifically on circular migration, so yeah.
I'm an atheist when it comes to climate change.
Beast!
Climate change is real. It is something that needs to be tackled and needs to be talked about and needs to be focused on.
Okay, let's see. Do I say anything about nuclear energy?
I'm currently reading into nuclear power.
Okay.
And I'm deciding whether or not some research has indicated that nuclear power may not be necessary to make the transition, or may not be viable to make the transition from non-renewable to renewable.
I don't know what I mean by viable here,
but I have more to read, on that. I have no ideological predilection about using nuclear or not using it. It's just whatever the research suggests, I'll go with that. When it comes,
hey, roads in the future here. Nuclear power is based. It's important. It's pretty good. Gonna make the transition to clean energy a lot easier. A lot of power too. Big energy. Vroom vroom, you know what I mean? Why did I say vroom vroom? What the fuck is wrong with me? Okay. Yeah, nuclear energy, good. So there you go. I did the research for you, old Rose. I mean, young Rose. Now we have now we're more developed. Let's keep going.
When it comes to US politics and what I believe here and what I believe is important there, for the election, we are riding with Biden. Burn your bus is cringe, especially with how the last couple of months have been with Donald Trump in office and the things he has done. We definitely need to get him out of office, and we definitely need to elect Biden over Trump, even though I would have supported Bernie, but Bernie's not the candidate anymore, so we have to work with that. We have to work with Biden. We have to vote for him because he will materially improve the lives of people in the United States of America, especially compared to Donald Trump.
Wow. Let's go. I was anti-burn your bus even back then. Look at me go. Okay, yeah, supporting Bernie. Would I have supported Bernie if they were running now? Probably. I would need to take a re-examination of all the policy things. I know Bernie had a few policies that were pretty iffy, but he had a lot of really good ones too, that were very important. So I'm not sure. I'm still generally in favor towards Bernie, but I see more of his weak spots now than I did before, specifically when it comes to rent control and minimum wage stuff. He had a bit of like a iffy thing going on there. Oh, I wonder how he would fare with a split Senate that we got. I don't know if we would have gotten as split of a Senate as we did in the 2020 elections with if Bernie was running. I think we probably would have gone still pretty split Senate. So I wonder how well Bernie would have done then with the split Senate. Bernie seems like a very competent politician who is able to get things done. So I think he would still be able to deliver good things. But with how split it was, I mean, Biden has a pretty good advantage there of being like a more moderate candidate, so to say, when it comes to being able to get stuff done. But Bernie probably would have pushed for more moderate things and gotten them through. Then once he realized that some of the main things he wanted to do, he might not have the political capital to do so at the moment. But yeah, I notice more of Bernie's flaws now. I'm probably leaning towards that I would have voted for him regardless. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to re-examine all the policies from back then again. And now I have the benefit of hindsight, looking at like a split Senate would treat all the different candidates. But yeah, hindsight's political electives is pretty difficult.
Also in the US, I want to expand public programs in general, and public systems, public industries need to be expanded. I feel like this will go a long way in improving the material conditions for people in the United States of America today. When it comes to Swedish politics,
I think it's more about just expansion. I think it's like a lot more. That's probably what I mean when I say expansion. I think because I had less information, I see like social programs as like a big blob, and if you make blob bigger, you do more good things where you can be a lot more specific with like what I'm talking about. So for example, the US needs to do something about its health insurance policy. The fact that for so many Americans, health insurance is tied to employment, and not all types of employment offer health insurance either, is it's a catastrophic system. It's absolutely terrible. You absolutely need a public option there at the very least in order to get things functioning there. Otherwise, when it comes to other programs that the US might need, I think taxes could probably be reformed a little to make those a bit better when it comes to the ratio between income taxes and capital gains taxes. That seems to be like a general thing. It's particularly for Sweden, actually, more than the US when it comes to the capital gains stuff going on. Furthermore, things like zoning and social housing and stuff like that is probably something that's pretty important. Mostly just like housing overall, more than necessarily social housing. Education especially needs to be untied from property taxes, because you see massively disparate educational outcomes on the basis of the property taxes. So your zip code is going to be massively influential in your educational attainment, which isn't a good thing. So education is definitely something that needs to be looked into as well. So yeah, education and healthcare, being a bit more specific on what I mean instead of just saying expanding social programs, would have been beneficial here.
Politics, I really care about expanding integration, so more intelligent integration practices, ensuring that, for example, credentials that people have before they came to Sweden can be translated in a good way into credentials that can be used efficiently on the Swedish labor market, and combating labor market discrimination, for example. Those are some really important things that should be done in order to improve integration.
Did I not mention education here, really?
Sweden can be translated, for example, so more intelligent integration practices, ensure about expanding integration, so more intelligent integration.
Okay. That's part of expanding integration, sure, but I think there are way more important things that I've discovered since then that are pretty major. There are some legal code things that absolutely need to be done. I think we need to look a bit more at Norway when it comes to the legal code and moving things in that direction. But there are also some really big things that I feel like I missed here that go beyond credential translation and labor market discrimination. So things like housing. I never realized how important housing was. And how big of an issue it was for Sweden until I did a bunch of research into it, and holy fuck, pretty big issue. It contributes a lot to segregation. Our housing markets are like choked right now, which isn't a great thing. So housing was one of the major things I missed here. Maybe I'll get onto them later. I don't think so about the housing point though. Renationalization of education, absolute necessity. Our charter school system is garbo. I hope I bring that up there. That's something that's pretty important as well. Increasing the base program from more than 2, so it's more than just 2 years. It's probably going to be pretty important there as well. But then the things I mentioned are also pretty viable. I don't think I had the legalizing cannabis bit there either. Maybe I had it as an independent thing. I didn't realize the intersection between that and stuff going on in Sweden. Yeah. That's what I would probably have mentioned. I think that the housing and education thing, for example, is way more important than the credential translation. Labor market discrimination is pretty significant in Sweden, so that one's probably still up there, but definitely, housing and renationalization of education, 2 super important things that I didn't mention here yet when it comes to immigration specifically. So yeah, let's see. Immigration
practices, ensuring that, for example, credentials that people have before they came to Sweden can be translated in a good way into credentials that can be used efficiently on the Swedish labor market, and combating labor market discrimination, for example. Those are some really important things that should be done in order to improve integration. Something that's also very important to me is that we make the schools here in Sweden public again. So we move back to a system of schooling that is public, which means that we get rid of the model we have right now with free schools and private schools, and
somehow used two of the weirder words to describe it.
The model we have right now with free.
So free schools in Sweden, charter schools are called friskolor. So I can see how I messed that up a bit there. Independent schools is a way of phrasing it, but charter schools is the best. It took me a while to find the charter school word. I'm not sure why, but yeah, charter schools is the best main thing to focus on here. Then I go on to mention private schools. Sure, there should be private schools, but the major thing is really in the charter schools that we have right now in Sweden.
Schools and private schools, and school paying, everything like that. We need to get rid of that. We need to go back to public education because it will have better outcomes. Also, improvement and expansion of public housing is something that's really important.
Say it. Okay, never mind.
This is actually really closely linked to integration. Is one of the key things you can do to improve integration.
Wow.
Is by expanding public housing programs.
I underestimated myself. My bad. I was being ageist. I'm sorry, young Rose. I apologize. I did not think I was going to bring this up.
Something we need in Sweden. There is a relative housing shortage here in Sweden, especially compared to most other developed countries. And it will help, make integration so much easier. And also will just, in general, ensure that more people can have housing and more people can have a place to live.
Wow.
When it comes to global politics, I believe that we need to work as a united world. To tackle climate change.
Okay.
We need to collaborate more with each other, make reasonable.
Do I say trade agreement? Am I multilateral trade agreement pilled here, or do I just kind of say work together, lol? Let's see.
More importantly, effective policy proposals and agreements in order to fight climate change properly. And I also generally like the idea of a more collaborationist, global society in which nations work together rather than fight with each other towards goals.
Okay, I said agreements. I should have said trade specifically. I should have said multilateral trade agreements to be more specific, because that's very vague. Like more agreements, more working together, less war, less conflict. Now, obviously, I can flesh that out a bit more, especially since I did developmental economics higher level during my IB diploma. That helped me a lot with these things. But specifically, peaceful relations brought upon by international globalization and trade with other countries is one of the major things that dissuade from war efforts, because there's more kind of like an interwoven fabric of different countries and the way they collaborate with one another. So if one steps out of line, all the kind of lines connecting them get cut off, and then their economy suffers massively. And then obviously that helps as well for support structures, and a lot of the economies are, shipped abroad and stuff like that, which means you have an interest in those other countries. And yeah, a more international and interwoven economy is very, very important. How exactly would nationalized education help with integration? The issue is that our current charter school system contributes to segregation. And it's a segregation that's a negative thing when it comes to migration. So it's not like nationalized education itself helps. It does a bit because right now, a lot of migrants are overrepresented in places of poor socioeconomics. And if you have a more nationalized system where you allocate funding instead of a flat amount per student, which is obviously going to benefit the students that need less resources per capita to be educated compared to those who need more, and those who need more are going to be in more fucked up communities and stuff like that. And instead of doing that, having resources that are allocated per need is obviously going to help more marginalized, communities and marginalized school districts than, the flat one we kind of have going on. So it's on two fronts. It decreases segregation, and it also just balances education out socioeconomically.
With the global stage. And with that out of the way, I thank you all very much for watching. Keep in mind that this Sunday, 7 p.m. CET, I will be having a viewer call and stream. Link to my Discord server is in the description of the video. If you join the Discord server, then we'll get everything sorted out once the stream begins. I'll provide would be discussed in like 5, 10, 15 minutes in order to ensure that everybody has a fair shot at, asking or talking about whatever they'd want.
Meritocracy, baby.
But with all that out of the way, thank you guys very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys this Sunday.
What was the last thing you said, Colin?
And with that out of the way, collaborationist ideas when it comes
Okay,
to...
I just said collaboration. Overall, pretty good. Better than I thought. We started off real rocky with those axiomatic values. And then it was pretty good. But beyond the bad philosophy at the start, we picked it up. It was pretty good. Proud of you, Rose. I think you did pretty well. And I think that I still have the core beliefs that I had back then. I've just learned more and adapted more in that sense. So I don't think that there's much that I've made like a massive shift on. I've just made my positions more nuanced and more detailed, which is good. So yeah, this actually went pretty well. Those were with my retrospective of my political positions of summer 2020. What this segment felt like. Younger. Okay. Fair enough.